Hello, welcome to the Drupal usability meeting for January 22nd, 2021. I'm Benji Fisher, and on the line are Ben Mullins, who has an issue he'd like to talk about, and Darius Zivertas. And Ben, could you start by reading the issue number for the sake of the recording?
Yes, it's a 1651344, and it's regarding using the color input type in the color module. So this is when the issue was initially proposed in 2012, the use of a native color picker was far less common in browsers, and at this point, I11 is the only Drupal supported browser that doesn't support native color pickers. And one of the reasons that I'm hoping to get this through is that we're eventually looking to get rid of jQuery entirely, and the color picker library that we're using is depends on jQuery, and it's also one that, although it has never reached an official end of life, it's essentially been unmaintained for several years, and it's the Farbtastic Picker, and we would prefer to get rid of libraries that are not being actively maintained. And so this issue was actually well on its way, and I tested it with multiple browsers, and the conclusion I came to is that we would be able to change this to native color pickers without limiting functionality for anybody other than IE11 users. So the user experience would be different, but it would be the native color pickers, which I think would be acceptable. But for IE11 users, what I was proposing was having them just have a text input accompanied by a lengthy description saying, if you're not on IE, you could have a color picker. Otherwise, please just enter your hex code here. And the reason that it's not particularly easy to add the color picker, pardon me, let me rewind a little bit. So I considered just conditionally adding the Farbtastic color picker depending on whether color inputs were supported or not. And the issue I ran into is that the color picker functionality also has considerable customization. And one of the main things is the ability to lock these colors together so one becomes, when one changes, the equivalent values change in the other one. So this locking functionality, in order to supply that for both Farbtastic and for native color pickers, would be a very difficult to maintain and difficult to deprecate elegantly piece of code. So by far the most maintainable and elegant decision for me would be to just let IE11 users know that they can still pick colors by entering it into a text field. But I'm also aware that that may cross a line regarding UX. So I wanted to run it by people and see if that was acceptable, given that the usage is hovering around 2% or less at most, and then the color picker itself is not something used every day. But I'm fully willing to accept that perhaps it has to remain intact for IE11 users. So that's what I bring to the UX meeting.
So I haven't completely followed. You were tying, so I'm not sure. Is it tied the feature that locks one color to the fact that IE11 wouldn't be able to use like color picker?
So this functionality would have to be rewritten to support native color pickers, and So it would mean that there would have to be a IE11 version of this and a native version of this, and it's already quite complex.
I see. So if we are just talking about just leaving IE11 users without the option to actually pick a color in this screen where they actually have a lot of options to do that elsewhere, I don't think they are losing a feature itself, just that their browser is not giving them the feature.
Right. Yeah. Because they'd still be able to enter the hex code, so they're not. Yeah. It's
exactly, they can still do that. The fact that they can't lock that, I'm not quite sure. I guess this would be part of a whole different conversation, which would be related to what features should we support on a more modern color module or feature, because not sure if you're aware that there are two issues on the ideas issue queue. One is for moving the color module into a contrib module because nobody or almost nobody uses it. And there's actually another one, which is to replace the color module with CSS variables.
Oh, those both sound very nice. Yeah.
So yeah, so I guess this whole thing will be more like a whole conversation about which features we have here, because on the replacing the color module with a CSS variable. So the initial proposal was actually a technical proposal, like just using CSS variables, and then several of us came to the issue and said that actually a concept that is nowadays more used in design systems is actually having several palettes. So giving the option to have several palettes and giving the user the option to choose between several palettes already chosen. And then not sure if we should give the option to give a custom palette, which is what we are seeing here, which is actually the functionality that the cast or the color module gives. So I guess this is tied to a completely different conversation about what features we want to give to the users.
Sure.
So not sure if anybody else has any other thought.
Oh, I did forget to mention one thing, which is the reason I even thought it might be acceptable to do this was, let's see, did I, in an issue from, this would be 2019 at this point. So as part of getting rid of jQuery UI date picker, the end result wound up being for browsers that don't support native date pickers, there's simply text fields, and then we have help text here. So Safari, for example. So that's something we've already done, is just inform the user that their browser doesn't support something, and so they're stuck with a slightly less convenient version. And my feeling was that date picker is a lot more common than color, so
yeah, exactly.
Worth proposing.
So I would say it makes sense. So what's exactly how a user that would like to lock a few colors, why somebody will need that feature, and what would the user lose if we get rid of also the option to lock colors?
As far as the locking colors, I'm not sure. I just know that that typically if I'm proposing removing functionality as part of a task where removing functionality isn't in the initial scope, never gets accepted. So I can never get it through the gates. So my plan is always to, get whatever done that I'm hoping to get done in this case, which is to get rid of a library that's no longer maintained, but otherwise provide the exact same features that people are accustomed to. So nothing's being
Okay.
taken away.
Okay, so we wouldn't get rid of the lock feature.
So
functionality.
I'd be porting the lock. At least that's my plan now. Is I'd be porting the lock
Okay.
to native. Because I think it would be a uphill battle to get it through
Yeah.
all the gates if I was removing library and removing functionality. I mean, that'd be great. I'd love to just not have to port that to native inputs. It would make it a lot easier. But based on prior issues where I've been expected to maintain functionality that is arguably has limited use,
Yeah.
I imagine this one would also be there. Someone would insist that it be maintained. So that's my plan. And I guess IE would not have the lock though, because they'd be entering it. No, actually, I think I could. It's possible I could keep the lock for IE as well. It would just be based on what they're typing in.
Makes sense. Then, if that's the plan, we'll vote yes to get rid of the option for IE11 users.
That's great. Okay.
So I will be 100%. But what other people thought?
It seems to me that this isn't so much a question for the usability team as it is a question for the release managers.
Okay, that's good you said that, because it was a release manager that said, please do the UX meeting first. So I've now ticked 2 boxes.
So we're giving you the full runaround.
Yeah.
Oh no, but it's one that completes the circle, which is great. So XJM was reluctant to say yes until UX felt that there weren't problems. So if you feel there aren't problems, then that's great.
Yeah, because first, as you said, it's not something that a lot of people is using, but
Yeah,
it's not like a critical functionality, but for sure, it's something that browsers already have. And if we can get rid of all stuff, it's obviously an improvement.
Yep. And I'm gonna add, I'll add a very nice note to the IE11 users, so they're aware of the 3 users that may venture in to use it will know what's happening.
Yeah, because it needs to have to be a site builder or someone like that ends up editing this with IE11, which is like really, there are really low chances of that.
Right. Well, that's great. I'm pleased to hear that there are no concerns on your end, and that will in turn please the release manager. So
Christina, will you add a comment to the issue, summarizing the discussion? Christina, you're muted.
Yes, that's true. I was saying happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. And for the sake of the recording, let me mention that we've been joined by Christina, obviously, and also by Thomas Howell. We're still open for other issues. Not much has been mentioned in Slack, and nothing was posted to the issue for the usability meeting. Does anyone present have any other issues they'd like to talk about?
I don't have anything else for today.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, then I guess let's wrap it up. Thank you all for coming, and hope we'll have more issues to talk about next week. Thank you.
Thank
Everybody-
you. Bye.
Bye.